people who called themselves Marxists have never read the Communist Manifesto or Das Kapital. Now I got to get down on this because it's a really big problem. Now, one thing, if you've ever read the last issue of the Communist Manifesto, you'll see that Engels put in the front of it that this is out of date. Stop fucking using it. Now, for Das Kapital, I don't think I expect everyone to have picked up Das Kapital. It's a fucking massive ass book, and a lot of people that are communist, people like me, or a lumpen, and also have cognitive issues in regards to reading. Now, but wage labor and capital is a nice way to at least get some of the fucking great points down. Das Kapital is something that a lot of people should read in the future, but that's something that really should be up for the booknology aristocracy types. That shouldn't be up to the lumpen proletariat or proletarian communists. It should be up for the people that are supposed to be the rear guard, the powerless in the revolution, because the labor aristocracy should be powerless in the revolution. The rear guard, they follow. The lumpen and the proletariat lead. So they should have all their little book knowledges down of all the mass amounts of stuff like this, because a lot of us learn from experience. And I'd say that any time that you waste on any of those 2 books could be spent diving into a nice 500-page book called Gramsci's Prison Notes, and that fucking book is an absolute paramount part of communist ideology in the way it needs to reshape itself so that it's more in tune with the classes it needs to be supporting and not making the failures of the Soviet Union and allowing the labor aristocracy to corrupt the system.
I'm not against reading Das Kapital, but I don't think it should be a requirement. Because Das Kapital, like the 3-volume like series is like 4,000 pages. You can't ask a lumpen proletariat or people with a learning disability to read something that complex. That I feel like
It's not even just my learning disability, like it's also like fatigue disabilities and other stuff like that. Because like with my fatigue, if I'm reading a book that's that fucking long, I'm just gonna pass it out. And the problem is the only way that I can deal with processing the book is I've got to read it first, then I've got to read it taking notes, then I've got to read it consolidating notes, then I've got to consolidate my notes amongst themselves into a conclusion so that I can fully understand what I'm reading. If I can't do that, I end up fucking utterly not capable of completely consolidating what it is I'm going about. So I like to be able to fully contextualize the shit that I'm doing, and my disability completely limits my ability to do that. It limits my capacity to deal with writing, reading, fucking what's it?
I actually think
thinking because the brain fog. There we go.
I actually think if you're in a I feel like Das Kapital should be mostly read if you're in a communism. In my opinion. Hell,
Yeah,
I don't even
I'm
think
a sociologist. I like the sociology side. It's much more interesting. Economics is fucking dull.
Well, I don't think you need to read all of Das Kapital. There's a lot of chapters in that book, and not all of them are relevant to the modern day.
I mean, you can read
Can I
Wage, Labor,
mention
and
something?
Capital, and Jason Unruh, I do believe, made a book consolidating wage, labor, and capital. I do believe.
Can I mention something as well? Is that Fimble made a great video recommending books to understand Marxian economics, and also the other thing is this. I'm gonna make this
There's a
joke.
fence up his
According
ass
to
as well, though.
according to Leftism Today, you're not a Marxist if you haven't read all 3 volumes of Capital, all these books I quote unquote read or some shit like that. According to Leftism Today, you're not a Marxist if you haven't read all those books.
That's crazy because most of the communists of the world haven't even read Das Kapital. So you're saying that the third world communists who don't fucking have the time to read something that fucking large are not communists? Get out of there with that stupid chauvinistic bullshit. That's stupid.
Shit.
Yeah. Literally, it's so funny how Leftism Today acts, but but the other thing as well is like these same people are literally just like a bunch of fucking LARPers who made like a whole cult for themselves, really.
It doesn't matter if he presents his good faith video on it for a while back. He's not fucking doing much in good faith and fucking helping around with us. And as soon as someone releases a video talking shit about us, he jumps on that to post it on his fucking community page and talk his own little shit.
Well, okay, I'm not going to discourage you from reading Das Kapital. That's not what I encourage. But I just think it's ridiculous to say that if you haven't read all of Das Kapital, that you're not a real communist. That's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, if someone says that to me, normally I'm gonna tell them to suck me dick. Like I'm gonna just be a dick about it. I'm gonna probably tell you to fuck off. I'm probably just gonna be a cunt because I find that as being like aristocratic gatekeeping, and I don't believe in aristocratic gatekeeping. You can find people who haven't read a fucking book in their fucking haven't read a book in their fucking life, and they could have had all the fucking ideas you have about communism. Ideas aren't owned. We don't own these ideas. There are plenty of fucking ideologies that ain't Marxism that come up with ideas that we have that are Maoists, that are Leninists, that are fucking this, that, and the fucking other, the third worldists. But everyone's so locked into these fucking tendencies and licking the assholes out of people that are fucking dead, which I mind you, licking people's assholes out isn't a really good thing to do anyway. But when you're licking the assholes out of dead people, that's when you might need to consider where you're sticking your tongue. Maybe look out and about and think about the different organizations of different people that come from all these different things that we could maybe be supporting and organizing with and getting to understand and getting to know why they believe in a different way and different things and different ideas.
Now, because I had to make that clear, because if someone will take this out of context, oh, they're complaining about Das Kapital being too long. No, I say read Das Kapital if you have the time, and if you have a study group. If you have a study group of people that can help you understand what you're reading, go ahead, read Das Kapital. But I would
remember as well that Marx writes like a fucking right bourgeois little prat.
Yeah, like I said, don't fucking take my word for it. If you want to read Das Kapital, do it.
And let me put this out. Engels is more important than Marx in the modern day. What Engels has written is more important than Marx in the modern day.
Well, I'm not going to, agree or disagree with that, but I'm just saying that I don't want anyone taking this out of context. Like, I don't think people should read it because it's too long. No, read the damn book if you have the ability and the time.
Yeah.
You should read Dialectics of Nature if you're going to go that far back.
Well, it's just my recommendation for Das Kapital, based on my experience. Read it with a group. Read it with people that are reading it themselves, who have never read it before, they have read it before, and they're trying to help new Marxists.
I mean, Finbo has a video breaking down the fucking theory of value in it, which is one of the most important components. And then also, wage, labor, and capital is a good enough consolidation of the vote. Yeah, and so one thing. So Engels, utopian and scientific. So this is the thing. People think that that's just a pure attack on anarchism. No, he's using examples of the time. What that's on about is the utopian socialism that spawns amongst the labor aristocracy, and you can see his criticization of the labor aristocracy and the bourgeois proletariat in his letters to Marx and the way in which society is starting to organize on a colonial basis. Like, this is a conversation that didn't get properly expanded by then until Lenin pulled forward on it. But you look to lumpen anarchists, and they're nowhere near as, they still got their own issues, but they're nowhere near as utopian as these fucking aristocratic feudal lords that wanted their own system back, that were fucking using anarchism as their flag. The lumpen anarchists on the street are fucking absolute brethren, and I got a love for them. And, I got slapped in the face. You get caught up in criticizing the anarchism of the 18 and 1900s, and then you realize, oh wait, this anarchism today is coming from the lumpen. They're different, they're strong, and that's my heart and love in it. But utopian and scientific, that's about the aristocracy and how they coerced the revolution. And that's just why Gramsci, if you combine that book with Gramsci's Prison Notebook, you will see why the labor aristocracy is a problem, because Gramsci expands on how the petty bourgeoisie will corrupt the socialist system for petty bourgeois socialism, and they'll absolutely destroy the revolution if they're given any chance to have any power within the system of post-revolution. It must be the organic intellectuals that lead the revolution, which is the lower class intellectual. He goes into a good explanation of it, at least a good enough one.
Well, to conclude this portion, because I do not want people taking me out of context, because you know how Caleb and his group are. They tend to take you out of context. For the last time, I do not.
The Banana Boys.
I do not discourage people from reading Das Kapital. Read it if you can. The Communist Manifesto, read it. It's a short book. Fucking read it. read it. I don't discourage people from reading those or Dallas Capital. If you can read, though, if I have to be honest, I would probably read Wage and Labor because it's shorter, and I'd read the Red Book or the Principles of Communism. Considering, I think they
don't waste your
explain it.
time with the fucking Communist Manifesto, please.
It's like, yeah, the Communist Manifesto read it if you want to understand the historical significance of it. Other than that, I don't think you need to read it. Right?
Like, it's
honestly.
not. So one thing to explain about that, it's not the manifesto of like communism and what it's going to be. It's the manifesto of the communists. That's what the Communist Manifesto is. You see, that's the Communist Manifesto, not the Manifesto of Communism. Like, it's what they wanted to have changed within society that would help them push their movement forward. And we have most of the 10 planks of communism, if not all of them. So, have we got communism? So it's kind of really a useless book. You might as well, like, it does have some little explanations in it and other little diatribes like that, but you might as well just go for something a little more core and functional within the sides of principles of communism. And you really want imperialism as well under your bracket too. You also want state and revolution under your bracket. Left-wing communism's a fun one to read. Imperialism, now, Lenin does use horrible terminology in imperialism. He does call people backwards, and that is not on, and people shouldn't defend that. That is Lenin using colonial language, and you've got to remember that with Leninism. A lot of Lenin's works has colonial language in it, and unfortunately, Stalin can talk so much great stuff, but as soon as he starts copying anything from Lenin, it gets too much. Like when he starts coming up with his own ideas, like how he wanted to push for direct democracy and other stuff like that in the 30s, and got fucking cock blocked by the market socialists, as he called them in his little angry diatribe at the end of Economic Problems of Socialism in the USSR. But one thing I must say to everyone that you're reading, if you're reading online, do not use Marxist.org. It has Trotskyist edits of Lenin's literature that should not be trusted. And if they're going to state what they do with Trotsky's literature because they're existing edits that exist in history, what's to say that there aren't edits on other pieces of work without any statementations? Or some that they might say that this version of reprinted stuff was reprinted wrong, so we changed it to the right reprint, and it's not actually the right one. They've just manipulated for their own gain. Like, it can't be trusted. I heard someone say that Marx to Mao is a good site. I don't know whether that is or not. I've not really properly checked it out, but anyone wants to check that out. But I don't know any other really good ones. But Marxist.org, I don't feel like that's a trustworthy one. It's also a very racist sort of thing as well, because they don't really have any black orgs guys on there. It's supposed to be a Marxist thing. They have Slavoj Žižek for some reason though. But when a comrade of mine, Comrade Shibby, and solidarity and respect to him, he and he needs to fucking hands off Black Rotary Card as well and fucking take down that video, but that's another different thing. Solidarity to Shibby. He turned around and pointed out to them that George Jackson, absolute sold-out brother George Jackson, was not in Marxist.org, and when he got a response from the Twitter, it was George Jackson is basically, of course, because George Jackson is a murderer. Like, no, like, what do you mean? And why's Trotsky in there? Trotsky's a murderer. Trotsky fucking, do you know, he had the nickname Butcher during the Civil War. I think Trotsky was much more of a murderer. I absolutely hate this. This is racism of the highest order. George Jackson was someone who was fucking sacrificed in his struggle to help free his brothers from prison. And he was stuck in prison for fucking yonks. The Black Panthers have spoken plenty about him and his struggle when he got arrested and his position in prison. And he wrote loads of fucking great works. That, there's a big collection of it, what he wrote in prison and other stuff like that. I can't remember the name of the books, so if anyone can remember them. But I've not really read through all of it, but what I've dived into is fucking amazing, and George Jackson is someone everyone should read. But the fact that Marxist.org turn around and say that he's a murderer and they don't want him on there because of that just comes across as fucking sift racism. I would not trust this website with a fucking 20-foot barge pole. Nice little image.
I rarely go to Marxist.org at all.
I used to.
All my Marxist literature is printed that I have.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah, well,
Sorry,
so
I'm just one of them guys.
yeah, well, yeah. In all honesty, yeah, I made my point that it'd be very difficult to take this out of context unless they would take like a very short clip and make it look like I discourage people from reading Capital, which I doubt any of fucking Infrared's cult would fucking read themselves anyway, which is I find hilarious. But anyway, I don't have much more to say about Infrared, honestly, the cult, other than the fact that I don't like them. I think they're extremely racist. They're chauvinistic, and I can't stand their ableism. I can't stand the way they treat disabled people, lumpen. I can't stand the elitism. I can't stand the fact that you have to read this and this and this to be a real Marxist. I think that's fucking gatekeeping. I'm against gatekeeping. Honestly, if we want to get people to read Marxism, we have to fucking be reasonable of what we can expect people to read.
I think we need to write new stuff and get them to read other stuff. Like, we shouldn't be just dumping Marx and stuff on there. We should be people who already have a confined understanding of that enough that we can explain things to people that they're so interested that they don't need to go into that. Because do you know what? Explaining how socialism works, explaining how the law of value works, it's actually not very difficult things when you compartmentalize them down. You don't need to go through 4,000 pages of fucking works to understand how capitalism works. If you fucking experience it, it's the people in capitalist realism that need that book because they're blind to it. They don't see it. People in the lower class, we see how this system ticks. We know how it all fucking works. That's why I hate it when the aristocrats think they're going to come and educate us. No, 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 no. We're going to come and educate you, motherfuckers, because you don't know shit.
I agree. In fact, there's other Marxists we could be reading about. We could recommend people to read. Like, I think a book that I'm currently reading by Michael Parenti is called History as Mystery, a very good book written by a Marxist-Leninist who actually talks about every aspect of history that the ruling class, either altered or admitted. Like, in one of the chapters I was reading, Parenti talked about how early Christian history, how Christianity committed a genocide against the pagans. That's not something. Okay, I know it's not relevant. I'm just using it as an example. Like, Marxist writers, Michael Parenti is American. Why not recommend people to read Michael Parenti?
Well, here's the thing as well. Like, you go back through history, the Christians. So, under Christian Anglo-Britain, they were absolutely genociding Breton people. Like, England used to be full of Celtic people. There's only some Celtic people still in the north. My family actually comes from that fucking descendant, both from my mum's and my dad's. My mum's got Liverpoolian, Breton, and Irish in her from fucking Ireland. But my dad's Breton and Anglo up in family originates from Yorkshire, from fucking pre-Viking time. But the name, my surname's been changed over time. It means tender to the farmlands. What's what my surname means. But I have no culture related to my Breton history because it was wiped out. The last bits of the Cobric language, which is where my New Yorkshire side comes from, absolutely wiped out by 1200 and some, 300 and 1300 and some. The only thing that remains of it is certain signs, and the Yorkshire dialect and a couple other dialects in the Cumbric region still have bits of Celtic in it. The Yorkshire one is, I remember hearing from a comrade that Yorkshire farmers actually count sheep in Old Celtic. Stuff like that, like
I just brought up Michael Parenti because his books aren't extremely long. Like, a lot of his books are reasonable that people can actually consume. They're not extremely long books. And
I think you're asking
honestly,
too much of people, man.
what?
I'm just joking. I said I think you're asking too much of people, man.
Well, I'm just saying that if I'm speaking from the American perspective, why not actually recommend people to read American Marxists, the actual good ones? It's like that's the thing. I don't hear anyone talk about Eugene
Jackson.
No one. I don't hear anyone talk about Eugene P. Debs or fucking any of the Black Panthers. It's always fucking
Fred Hampton.
yeah. It's always the five heads of Marxism. It's like no, I don't agree with the notion that you're not a Marxist if you don't read any Marx, Lenin, Stalin, Mao, or whatever. Considering if you're poor and you read a Marxist text, a lot of it, what you're going to read is going to be fucking preaching to the choir. I'm just being real as someone that has experience reading this stuff, as someone that's been poor all of his life. I know fucking what they're talking about. It feels redundant to me.
It's bigger than that, but smaller than that. The most important thing you need to get down is dialectics and materialism and historical is materialism, because if you can understand that, you can come up with any of the ideas with these books without having ever touched a fucking page of them. I've read a few books. I've not read fucking absolutely loads. I'm nowhere near any of these fucking dickhead aristocrats that think they're fucking big I am motherfucking communists that are gonna bring on the fucking revolution by voting in Caleb Maupin to be fucking Xi Jinping of America. What's it? Because I understand dialectics quite well, to the point where I had a Maoist comrade of mine saying that he's going to repeatedly reread the Mao's 5 principles to try and get 5 essays. Sorry, the same difference, but the Mao's 5 essays down every now and then, just to try and get towards as the dialectical of a position of mine. It's one of my favorite things I've ever had anyone fucking turn around and say to me. That was fucking blessed. That was. That's it. The Engels list is a fucking top comrade, but the what's it? It's about the way you analyze the world, because here's the thing: the theory is absolutely important. I ain't one of them fucking dickheads. Don't fucking take me for that. But here's the motherfucking cream on the pudding that goes on top of the cake. You know how this fucking shit works. You've got to have an analysis of modern day on top of any point of theory that you're looking at through history, and it's got to be practical analysis. It's got to come from organic bodies, people who are experiencing the world truly, because experience is the only pathway to genuine knowledge, and it's the people with the experience that needs to be leading. If they're not leading, then what kind of revolution are we going to have other than one that's going to die out because the fucking labor aristocracy will co-opt it for their own fucking bollocks?
Mao Zedong talked about in multiple occasions how experience is everything.
Everything. It's the only pathway to genuine knowledge as well.
And,
I must express only, no other way.